Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kia ora, brothers. It's the director. Chargers fans. Who's waking up this morning feeling like champions? I know I am, dudes. What a huge offseason for the Chargers so far. And it's not over yet, Bull fam. Remember that thing called the draft? Yep, we still got a first-round pickup coming here in April, as well as I do think more moves for the Chargers before all is said and done in free agency. Maybe some more minor moves, but I think the Chargers may have one more big move up their sleeve. This offseason, man, highlighted by acquisitions of Khalil Mac and J.C. Jackson. This is absolutely so huge. In my time being a Chargers fan, I've never seen an offseason quite like this. And honestly, in looking at the Chargers history, this may be the biggest Chargers offseason in franchise history. And of course, we're going to be covering it in detail, getting excited every step of the way. Now, of course, the AFC West almost demands moves like this. We've got Russell Wilson and, Patrick Mahomes to worry about. But so far, the Chargers are building one of the most legit-looking rosters on paper, at least, that we've seen in the NFL. And again, I don't think we're done yet. We still need to fix the right side of the offensive line and a couple of more pieces as far as depth. How much money do we have left to work with? Well, we're going to also answer that in today's video. Now, till then, in today's video, we're going to be grading the most notable moves up to this point because, again, the Chargers could likely do something additional here in the next coming days, but it should be a fun one, man. So question in the comments before we do get started: what is your favorite move by the Chargers so far this offseason? This could include re-signing Mike Williams, Khalil Mac, and of course J.C. Jackson that was newly acquired yesterday. Now let's get into this one, guys. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, the small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Guys, we went up like 1,000 subs this last month. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Let's get into it, baby. Lights, camera, action. Grading the Chargers off-season moves so far in 2020. This is going to be a fun one, man. This spells so much success for the Chargers going forward, and we will be talking about, some of the repercussions of signing all these players as we go along. But, man, does this look good for the Chargers. So to start things off, we're going to go ahead and get some of the smaller signings out of the way. We're not going to cover all of them, but just some of them that I do think make somewhat of an impact. Starting here with Chase Daniel, backup quarterback to Justin Herbert. He re-signed for a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. I feel that he was less than stellar in preseason last year, but you can argue that he's a good mentor for Justin Herbert. I guess you can't hate the deal, but it's definitely not my favorite. We're going to give it a B+ so we can get to some of the good stuff here, right? Next up, we got Dustin Hopkins. Hey, some Chargers fans weren't super stoked about this. Me personally, I definitely am, man. Hopkins signed a 3-year, $9 million contract with the Chargers that could be worth up to $12 million. We've yet to see how that contract has been structured. A friendly contract, I would say. Actually, I actually have notes on this. It's a friendly contract with an out in 2023, so definitely doesn't hold down the Chargers with Dustin Hopkins just in case he does see some inconsistencies next season. Overall, I do see this as a more reliable signing for the Chargers because he has been more consistent than most kickers we've had in the last decade. I'm going to give this a B+. I think this was a solid signing for the Chargers, not too expensive, and definitely came in clutch last season for our special teams. And then lastly, on the smaller deals, we got Donald Parham and Jalen Guyton getting signed to a Chargers tender. Not bad at all, right? Cheap deals, under $1 million for the returning players. I think Donald Parham, and we talked about this, I think in the middle of last season, has a legitimate shot at being the Chargers tight end 1 this season if he can stay healthy, because this dude, man, very rare skill as far as size and speed. I think Donald Parham has the makings of a great tight end for the Bolts, especially when paired up with Justin Herbert. I do think Jalen Guyton being tendered as well is definitely important for this team. We have to keep speed on the roster, but additionally, I think we need to add more. So I'm going to give this a grade of an A. Did not break the bank at all, and I think these two will heavily be involved in the offense this season. Now let's get to the big stuff, Bolt fam. Of course, we've been talking your ear off about this since it was announced last week, but here it is. Mike Williams, welcome back to the team, Big Mike, who signed a 3-year, $60 million contract with $40 million in guarantees. Now, let me go ahead and explain this, guys. This was a very friendly contract in terms of the way it was structured, okay? Only a cap hit of $14 million in 2022. This was great. But additionally, and free agency did have an impact on this Mike Williams signing as well. Additionally, just days later, Christian Kirk would sign a 4-year, $84 million contract, averaging at $21 million a season. That is absolutely insane. If you are a team in the NFL that needs to re-sign a wide receiver, dude, the Jaguars just absolutely ticked you off because that is going to raise the price for every wideout in the NFL. So the Chargers, in terms of, what happened with Christian Kirk just days later, we lucked out getting Mike Williams early and keeping, honestly, that cap hit very low in 2022, as well as provide a very friendly contract with an out that terms the way the money is spread out, and honestly, just very low risk, high reward when it comes to Mike Williams. And money aside, we have to remember the kind of value that Mike Williams is going to be bringing to this team. I honestly think going into age 27, the primer years for a wide receiver, Mike could very well be our wide receiver one over the next few seasons, maybe even this year. We saw the Chargers start to experiment with Mike Williams playing the X receiver role, which is essentially your wide receiver one role, and he found massive success early in the season. Had not been for being banged up a little bit, I think he would have gone even further than he did this year, which was already a very, very stellar season for any wide receiver in the league. Now, this isn't to say that Keenan Allen's going to get pushed out in any way, shape, or form, but I think Keenan Allen, as he gets a little bit older, is going to adopt the Larry Fitzgerald mentality a little bit. You guys remember, people worried about Larry Fitzgerald and his age. Bruce Arians, the head coach at the time, spoke with Larry Fitzgerald, and they agreed to let him play in the slot more often than not, where his production remained very high for very many years. So I still think Keenan Allen has it on the outside. I think we'll see plenty of that this season. But if the Chargers want to maximize their production from their wide receivers, I think it would be wise to line up Mike Williams at wide receiver one with Keenan Allen in the slot, and maybe we add a speedy wide receiver in the draft for our wide receiver two position. I think this would give the Chargers and Justin Herbert all the weapons that he would need to fully operate that offense this year, and it would continue this Chargers trend of being a top 5 offense from last season. So Mike Williams, to me, we're going to give this a grade of an A. I think the money definitely made more sense than we thought, maybe more than I thought, initially. I think the deal could have been a little bit softer on the Chargers, but you really cannot argue with the value we got, especially considering the Christian Kirk signing a couple of days later, as well as how important he is to this team. I think Mike Williams saw a near breakout season last year, and I think he continues it this year. Next up, let's talk about the news that just lit the NFL world on fire last week, dudes. Like, oh my goodness, in a million years did I ever think the Chargers would be signing premier pass rusher Khalil Mac to a deal, dudes. And huge shout out to Charger Swap as well, as you guys see up here in the top right corner. This guy's definitely an account to follow in the offseason to get yourself hyped up to see these players in the powder blue. Khalil Mac acquired via trade to the Chargers. The Chargers sent a 2022 second-round pick and a 2023 sixth-round pick to acquire Khalil freaking Mac. You guys saw my reaction video. I think that got like 30,000 views. You guys are absolutely insane. I was losing my mind. And to this day, I wake up every morning and like, oh my God, is Khalil Mac really a Charger? Was it just all a dream? Was I in the Matrix? No, this is the Chargers reality, man. And this is not only that, adding a great player, this was a huge trade in favor of the Chargers. Now, Bears fans were absolutely livid that they didn't get more in terms of draft capital for Khalil Mac. I'm shocked that there weren't other teams out there that were willing to bid higher for Khalil Mac, because the fact of the matter is, when I saw this trade, there was no terms initially announced, on Twitter by like Ian Rappaport or whatever. I just assumed that the Chargers traded away a first-round pick, and you know what? I was fine with it. I was like, this is a power move. We need Khalil Mac. We need a player like this, of this caliber, on our defense. And then later, just moments later, it was reported to be a 2nd and 6th round pick. I was absolutely losing my mind, man. In terms of value, the Chargers, in my opinion, did make it out the victors in there, but I'm not going to completely wipe it away for the Bears either. I think this deal was all about money to them, which in all fairness makes sense for what they're trying to do over the course of the next 3 to 5 years in Chicago, because the Chargers did absorb his $60 million contract, but additionally, the Bears did absorb, $23 million in dead cap, which has also resulted in no guarantees for Khalil Mac on the Chargers. So if something were to happen, things don't work out, he sees a potential career-ending injury, knock on wood that doesn't happen, the Chargers would be able to move on from Khalil Mac with no dead money. And that is just an absurdly intelligent contract by Tom Telesco and friends in the front office. What a freaking slam dunk deal for the Chargers. Khalil Mac, in my opinion, you really can't, beat a power move like this by any team in the NFL. Mac brings a fierce answer opposite Joey Bosa, rivaling that of Aaron Donald and Von Miller. This is going to be one of the top, producing pass rushing duos in the entire NFL. And additionally, I think outside of just bringing in Mac and his production, we can finally see Joey Bosa live up to his contract. $135 million can no longer get double-teamed very consistently for Joey Bosa. And that just adds more value in terms of money spent for the Chargers going forward. Great move for Khalil Mac as well. We also have to look at Khalil Mac individually as a player. He is older, but still very much so has the juice. In just 7 games last season, Mac produced 6 sacks before sitting out the rest of the season with a foot injury, which, mind you, is a concern, but definitely not as much as other players. Mac has been very consistent on the field for very many years before this injury, okay? Khalil Mac has still got it, dudes. But in terms of Khalil Mac and what he's going to be able to produce, moving to the Chargers with Joey Bosa is a great move for him too, right? You pair up with Bosa, we're going to give Bosa as well as Khalil Mac more one-on-ones as well, okay? This should boost the production of a Khalil Mac too, which is absolutely scary. I think a lot of people talk about his age. A lot of people talk about, does he still have it? I think he does. But additionally, I think that does cancel out any concerns, being that he is rushing opposite Joey Bosa. That is going to help him tremendously, and it's something I don't see a lot of players talking about. That is a huge benefit for Khalil Mac going forward. So this is heavily following the formula of what made Brandon Staley's defense with the Rams in 2020 so lethal. It is hard to argue this. This was a power move. The Chargers just immediately shot up the board as one of the most dangerous defenses in the league. What a move by the Chargers. We're going to give this a grade of an A+. Didn't have to give up a lot to acquire him. We had the money. It makes so much sense that we absorbed the contract, and it was structured in a way where Khalil's only going to hit for $17 million this season. Very good deal for the Chargers, and adds an elite defensive piece to this defense. Next up, maybe more of a minor signing in terms of, a contrast of the other guys that we have on this list, but still a very important one that I as well wasn't fully aware of how good it was when it happened. I've read about, Austin Johnson, I think via Daniel Popper a couple of times. I know the Guilty as Charged guys were super stoked about that. I'm sure they called it. Very intelligent dudes over there, man. This is a good signing for the Chargers, dude. He signed a deal worth up to $14 million over 2 years. I don't think any official details have been released yet. The big thing to keep an eye out for on that contract is the term up to, okay? That's a huge part to pay attention to. So I wouldn't expect Austin Johnson's cap hit this season to be anything too big, and honestly, it's one that I think is worth it for the Chargers anyway. As I said before, Austin Johnson was not on my radar, but I can say the same thing about Ode Ibushi last season. I view this as a very similar upside sort of situation, but on the D line, okay? Johnson ranked 11th in best run stop rate last season, 37 run stops on 300 run defense snaps. Individually, that is a very good stat, and a lot of people will say that Austin Johnson saw his breakout year last year with the New York Giants, okay? He has the ability to play every single down. He's an underrated, and very cheap-ish option for the Chargers. I think this is a very solid signing. You can almost see him as the guy that lines up next to our defensive tackle in between, let's say, a Khalil Mac or a Joey Bosa. His run-stopping ability is going to help this Chargers team team tremendously that ranked at the bottom of the league in run defense last year. When Brandon Staley said that he wanted to turn over this run defense overnight, he meant it, and an Austin Johnson is a great step in that direction. Was it my favorite move? Not really, because I just didn't know as much about Austin Johnson, but at the same time, it makes so much sense, and it's a great value for the Chargers. I'm going to give this move a grade of a B+. I think it's solid. I think, adding him with the other pieces that we got on defense is going to really form up and gel together as something that's going to really help this Chargers versus the run, because this defensive line is going to look very different next year. Next up, another blockbuster signing that honestly got me off of my butt, right? I was out of my seat. I was so excited. I was screaming for joy. This is one that I've been targeting for a long time. A guy that definitely, when I'm playing Madden franchise, he's one of the first names that I sign off of free agency. His name is Sebastian Joseph Day. Again, another jersey swap courtesy of Chargers Swap on Twitter. Man, dudes, Sebastian Joseph Day, who signed a 3 deal worth up to $24 million with $15 million guaranteed. Again, up to is going to be a big part of that contract. No official news on the contract yet, as far as I am aware, but this was a great move for the Chargers, and honestly one that I didn't think would be this cheap. I thought he would be closer to, let's say, I don't know, $10 million a season. This is very, very nice. Even $8 million a season, which I do think, kind of fits in that margin. This was a huge move for the Chargers, man. They have fully bolstered their run defense pretty much overnight. You guys know how much I love Sebastian Joseph Day. 6'4", 310 pound beast nose tackle in the middle of that line, who just eats up space with his size and strength. The size and strength of the interior line right now, dudes, it really does better fit what a traditional 3-4 defensive scheme looks like, and this guy's going to be a big piece of that puzzle. I was saying this the other day, man, when we signed him off of free agency. You could almost argue this is our replacement for Linval Joseph, but additionally, I think this is an upgrade over Linval Joseph. And Linval, in my opinion, was one of the best players on our defensive line last year. Sure, we weren't good versus the run, but there were some standout players, and I think Linval Joseph was definitely the highest ranked among all of them, right? This would be an upgrade in my opinion. Sebastian Joseph Day is just a huge human being. He's young, like 26 years old, something like that. He's going to be on this team a while, and he's a huge answer to what we needed in the middle of this line. And this is huge. This is just huge. In terms of stuffing the run, as well as eating up blocks to free up Bosa and Mac, there really was very few guys I felt were a better fit for the Chargers. I don't think anybody was a better fit for the Chargers than Sebastian Joseph Day, and we got him honestly on a pretty solid deal in terms of what the Chargers are spending. They only played 7 games before needing a surgery for a injured pec last season, but in the time that he was on the field, he was electric. And keep in mind, guys, an injured pec is not as big of a deal in the NFL as, let's say, an ACL or something like that. And again, I'm going to be knocking on wood the entire time in this video, so the injury doesn't concern me as much as, let's say, other players, okay? In that time that he was on the field, though, he was electric, stuffing the run, also producing 3 sacks. I was watching some film on him, earlier this morning. This dude was consistently getting his hand up in the air, swatting down passes by the quarterback. He is just all over the place when he is making plays out there. And Sebastian Joseph Day, for a reason, was one of those guys I was targeting very, very high in free agency this year, and we got him, man. In 2020, he ended the year, in 2020, actually, yes, when he was playing healthy, he ended the year with a stellar 80.6 PFF grade, and I think it was in the high 70s in terms of run stuffing. This is a run stuffing defensive tackle that is going to eat up space in the middle of the line and absolutely continue to form what Brandon Staley envisioned when he adopted the Chargers defense. This is a huge, huge piece and a huge step in that right direction. Day was my player number 1 on my radar this offseason, and Brandon Staley delivered. This is a fantastic move. The deal makes sense, and this is really going to help what Brandon Staley wants to accomplish in 2022. I'm going to give this a grade of an A+. Just a slam dunk signing by the Chargers. And I was getting a little worried there for a minute. Like, we brought in Austin Johnson. I was like, oh, are we still going to be able to get Sebastian Joseph Day? And they delivered, man. What a slam dunk for the Chargers. A+ is all around. And finally, I think the name everybody's been waiting for me to cover in this video. We're going to talk about the one and only J.C. Jackson to the Los Angeles Chargers, who signed a 5-year, $82.5 million contract with $40 million guaranteed. This averages out to just $16.5 million a year, with only a cap hit in 2022 of $8 million. Tom Telesco, you are a mad scientist, my friend. I do not know how you pulled that off, but J.C. Jackson is on the roster for the Los Angeles Chargers in 2022 with only an $8 million cap hit. Now, I was saying 33s in the chat yesterday. My bad. 3s in the chat, 3s in the comments if you guys appreciate also what Derwin James did in order to make this happen. I have a sneaky suspicion that Derwin James had a hand to play in this acquisition, and did it pay off for the Chargers, man. What a monster offseason for the Chargers. This was a statement power move by this team that we are transforming over one season into a lethal defense that's going to get a lot of buzz over the offseason. Now, of course, most fans know how big of an impact guy like J.C. Jackson, or how much of an impact J.C. Jackson brings to the table, but let's give you a little bit of a refresher, right? J.C. Jackson is called Mr. Int for a reason, Mr. Interception, right? Logging 25 interceptions in his 4-year career so far. You guys know how ludicrous that is? You guys know how insane that is? 25 interceptions over 4 seasons is unheard of. Of course, there's going to be legends in the game that have produced similar numbers, but those are legends. This is a guy on the roster for the Chargers this season. He's only, 26, 27 years old. He's got longevity with the Chargers. He's going to bring some playmaking ability to that defensive back room, which already looked really, really nice, right? He's an elite man corner, man-to-man coverage, very hard to find in free agency. Those guys do not come, very often available in free agency. And what this is going to do is it's going to give Brandon Staley so much more flexibility in his defense this year, right? When it comes down to shut down corners, you'll be hard-pressed to find a better guy than J.C. Jackson anywhere in the NFL. I almost view J.C. Jackson as maybe a Jalen Ramsey 2.0, a baby Jalen Ramsey, right? For Brandon Staley specifically. He was able to use Jalen Ramsey in a very unique and intelligent way to make sure that he's near the ball, more often than not with the Los Angeles Rams. I think he's going to be doing the same thing here with J.C. Jackson in terms of how he's utilized. Sure, he's not as big as Jalen Ramsey. In my opinion, definitely Jalen Ramsey's the better quarterback. But dude, J.C. Jackson, in my opinion, he's going to be utilized in such a way where he's going to make a big impact for this team. And he's going to be utilized in such a way that I view as similar to Jalen Ramsey. And you could also argue against that too. I think our team, in terms of our Jalen Ramsey, it's Derwin James. But at the same time, you're putting those pieces in place so he can try and not replicate, but get close to what he was doing with the Rams in 2020. In that season, they had the best defense in the NFL. All of a sudden, again, we're starting to see Staley's 2020 blueprint come together with a signing like J.C. Jackson. Now, how will this defense look? Some people have been asking me a lot about this, like how the Chargers defensive backs or cornerbacks going to look, right? It's going to be lethal, and I mean lethal, okay? J.C. Jackson will be our unquestioned cornerback 1, and with, in my opinion, Asante Samuel Jr. opposite him, okay? And a lot of people will say, isn't Asante Samuel Jr. going to be our slot guy? Yes, he is, but not exclusively, in my opinion. You can keep him in the slot or on the outside depending on what's going on in the game. He was great on the outside for the Chargers last season. In my opinion, Michael Davis, who's still going to be a solid cornerback too, in my opinion, you really only need to bring him in on nickel and dime packages, right? That's, in my opinion, you can still rock out with Asante Samuel and J.C. Jackson on the outside, no problem. And that is great. That's having 2 elite playmakers on the outside for your cornerbacks at all times. And that honestly brings, again, a lot of flexibility to Brandon Staley. So long story short, this DB group just got a huge shot in the arm, and Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco pulled off a miracle by keeping his cap hit at $8 million for this season. What a pickup by the Bolts. I'm giving this a grade of an A++. This was a power move, and it really brought in that centerpiece of the DB unit alongside of Derwin James to really form something special with the Los Angeles Chargers, okay? So overall, what is my grade going to be for the LA Chargers this season? Well, I'm going to give it an A+++, my friend. I know, dudes, the hype is real. I'm biased. I'm a Chargers fan, but in my opinion, this is absolutely warranted. This offseason has pushed the Bolts over the top to maybe even in terms of Super Bowl contenders. These moves you don't see very often in the NFL. And when you do, you see teams like the the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? Go to the Super Bowl. You see teams like the Los Angeles Rams go to the Super Bowl. The Chargers are pushing their chips in, man. Very exciting to see. And not only that, they're not just out there blindly spending money like the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? They're making calculated decisions and calculated risks to bring the right guys into the team that with money that makes sense. And we're not done, dudes. I think a few more moves the Chargers will need to make in free agency, definitely. But, remember that thing called the draft? We still got more players and more reinforcements coming in. So another thing I wanted to answer here on this video as we're winding down is how much cap we have left, okay? I've been getting this asked a lot since we've signed, J.C. Jackson. As of right now, over the cap has us at $13.2 million left in cap space. But I don't think that's been fully updated for our more minor signings like, Chase Daniel and Hopkins and stuff like that. I'm not quite sure if those guys are on the list, but we can assume it's somewhere around $10 million, right? Does this mean we're broke? Nope, not at all. The Chargers should continue to address needs right now, in my opinion. You cut Brian Bulaga, this would put us over $20 million, right? You restructure Joey Bosa, Khalil Mac, that could well put us over $50 million if we really wanted to. Now, will that happen? I think Bulaga is going to happen. I'm more than certain that he's going to get cut here very soon. The restructure is a strong maybe as well for me. Maybe not for like the full $30 million that we could move, but I think for somewhere in between that, we could definitely get some money moved to a later season so we can finish building this team via free agency if that's what the Chargers want to do. Also, remember, we need around $12 million for the draft and in-season spending, but I think the Chargers could produce one more big move in free agency this year. We could do more than that if we wanted, but I think there's a couple of positions that we definitely need to make some money in order to address, okay? So lastly, who could we sign? There's a few moves the Chargers still need to make, in my opinion, and one of them, a big one, in my opinion, is right tackle. By moving on from Brian Bulaga, we will make more than enough money to bring in a guy like Morgan Moses, okay? I think this is a big thing that the Chargers still need to address. We just saw the Denver Broncos bring in Randy Gregory. They've already got Bradley Chubb. The Raiders, with that Max Crosby, I don't want to see that again. I think Morgan Moses, a very durable right tackle, is definitely like the next guy on my radar. Sure, I'm still hearing, buzz about Akeem Hicks maybe joining the fold as well, but I think right tackle is definitely a big thing the Chargers need to address right now. Right guard is also of concern. I'm on the bring back, a Deabushi train on the cheap because I think that even if he does get injured, Brendan Hymas is a solid backup, and there's no guarantee. I think Deabushi could definitely play a full season. And then there's depth guys, right? I believe the Chargers could still afford some moves here at running back 2, cornerback 3 or 4, tight end, edge 3, and most importantly, in my opinion, swing tackle. I think the Chargers will still have money to make some moves there in free agency. But remember, guys, a lot of these concerns will also be addressed via the draft. If I'm going after any more free agents, it's right tackle, right guard, and maybe running back 2 for me this season. Although I wouldn't be opposed to other moves in Chargers, or players that are linked to the Chargers and guys like, Honey Badger and Akeem Hicks. I think if the Chargers want him, they'll make the money and they'll get him on the roster. So bottom line for me in this video today, man, Staley is creating something magical in Los Angeles this year. A defense that's designed to plug up the middle of that line, freeing up your edge rushers to ruthlessly and consistently get to the quarterback, right? And this will undoubtedly cause an increase in bad decisions and hurried throws. And this will put the ball in the vicinity of our defensive backs more often than not. And guess what? We added the biggest threat in the league to capitalize on those opportunities in J.C. Jackson. And let's not forget, Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr., and Nasir Adderley will also be back there too. This is a mean and aggressive style of defense that I am just so stoked to witness in 2022. The Chargers are pushing all their chips forward this season. The era of the Super Bowl threat, Superchargers, has begun. And let's not forget, the cap is more than likely going to increase to over $220 million over the next season or two, which means these signings will bring in more value, will bring in terms of value over time, more value, okay? As well as give us relief when it's time to sign Justin Herbert. This is what I've been begging the Chargers to do for years, and it's finally happening. If we're lucky, this could very well produce a Super Bowl run for the Chargers this season. And I'm not the only one saying that, dudes. There's other YouTubers, there's other, sports heads out there outside of the Chargers fandom that are also saying the same thing. But if anything, if the Chargers make it to the playoffs, we go deep, whatever, if anything, we are instilling a new culture in this franchise. No more watching from the sidelines. We're here to play. And that's something I really hope sticks for years to come. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you did like this content, hit us up with a like and sub on the way out. To answer my own question from the top of the video, what is my favorite move by the Chargers so far this season? J.C. Jackson's really hard to beat, man. But I love Khalil Mac coming to the Bolts, dude. Just being familiar with Brandon Staley, addressing, it's the counterattack to the Broncos bringing in Russell Wilson. I'm a huge fan of that move. That's my favorite move so far. Well, guys, again, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. I can't believe what I'm witnessing.